Welcome to episode 14 of On the Mark with Arpit, Mark Seagraves, as always here with me. I'm Arpit Sharma, as we talk about a lot of football that is going to be coming our way. Today, our show is about the UEFA Champions League final, maybe a little look back at the FA Cup final, which I don't know why we ignored. The two men who've been at both those teams in the UEFA Champions League finals for a very long time and are not going to be there next season for both of them. And we'll look ahead just a little bit at the Euros. Mark Seagraves, very warm welcome to you. Anything you want to say before we get started talking about this?
No, it's been a while since we last, or it seems like it's been a while since we last did a show. Yes, we will have to talk about the FA Cup, unfortunately. Yeah,
unfortunately.
But we've got a big game coming up in the Champions League, and then obviously the Euros. So there's a lot of football still to be had.
Yeah, it is. Incidentally, one of the reasons we didn't immediately do the podcast literally following the FA Cup win. One, we didn't plan for it because I thought United was going to lose, so I didn't really want to do it. But the other thing was I actually went out after doing the show, and I had a pretty late night. I think I walked back in at 6:30 in the morning. So there was no way that we were going to do a podcast, or it would have been a very interesting podcast to watch in terms of what I would have to say. But yeah, Manchester United won, Mark, and we won't get into extensive detail about it. Just two questions. How impressive was the win? And two, all these stories surrounding Ten Hag. What is your view about
it? Brilliant win, deservedly so. Better team on the day. So that's the footballing side out of it. And Ten Hag's put two fingers up to everybody, hasn't he? And said, I've just gone and won the FA Cup again. And it leaves the club in a serious situation, because he has brought silverware. Okay, you finished in whatever 8th, I think it was, which isn't ideal, but you have put a trophy in the cabinet, and who's going to come in?
And you're back in Europe. You're in the Europa League.
Well, yeah. But who's really going to come in and make a difference? He's been there a while. He understands the club. I would definitely give him another year. He needs to get rid of some of the players. We're not going to discuss that now, but some of the players need to go. Other players obviously need to come in. It's just a fresh start, and they've got new owners. It could be a good thing that if he stays and they give him the players he wants, then we'll see a different Man United. If they play like that, Arpit, every week or near enough to that standard every week, then they're going to be in with a shout of actually winning the Premier League.
Yep. Not sure we have that much confidence as United fans, but yeah, at least competing for the Champions League positions for now. We're taking baby steps. The FA Cup is good, and then hopefully we progress from there. I'm not the biggest Erik Ten Hag fan. I've not been the biggest Erik Ten Hag fan for the past 2 years, but even I would say at least give him a year after what he's shown us against Manchester City. Let's not forget, it wasn't a win against any club in the world.
Wouldn't it have been such an easy option for the club, for the supporters, if you lost that game? Lost it playing the way you have been, which has been pathetic to a point.
Yep.
And this was exactly what you guys have wanted to see all season. And they did it against the best team in the world, by the way, who's just won the Premier League. And yeah, fully deserved. Yep. Give him another 12 months. So let's see how he goes.
Yeah, if they'd lost, and especially like what you said is very correct, the manner of the loss would have been, if it had been like losing to Crystal Palace and the way we went about it, I don't think there would have been too many people who would have been defending him. So yeah, well done to Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag. And from that epic final, and maybe it gives inspiration to the underdog, because it's Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund. It's a proper David versus Goliath fight in terms of one team having been there, been in multiple finals, the most successful team in Europe against Borussia Dortmund, who doesn't usually end up in Champions League finals. The third in their history in terms of Champions League. They've won it once. They lost at Wembley the last time they played a German team, Bayern Munich. It could have been an all-German affair, but Real Madrid, of course, 89th and 91st minutes are very critical to them in any match. So they play Borussia Dortmund in the final. And just because again, you've followed the Bundesliga, you've covered the Bundesliga, you've watched so much of the Bundesliga. When you see this final, before seeing what Borussia Dortmund have done over the past 12 months, whether in the league or the Champions League, just looking at this final, what does your heart say immediately?
My head more so. My head says, how the hell have they ever got to the final? Because having watched them, near enough week in, week out, because they're always on the TV. For the life of me, Arpit, I don't know how they've got there, but they have, and they're a threat because, as we've seen in any given game, they can get over the line. They can beat teams that Atletico Madrid beat them comfortably. So. Yes, but they're playing against, as you say, the Goliath of football, and the experience that the clubs had in Champions League finals, the manager, the players, everything around it dictates that it's going to be a Real Madrid win. But as we've seen this year, in terms of even Bayern Munich, it could have been a Bayern Munich Dortmund final quite easily, and only for a substitution, a good substitution by Ancelotti, and a fair wind, and they got the 2 goals that they needed. So it's not over. But if you were to give me 100 rupees of your hard-earned money to put on either team, it would have to be Real Madrid. So yeah,
everyone will say Real Madrid. But before we get into the details of the match, just let's talk about the theme of finals this year. And I'm only going to talk about the Europa League final. I'm going to talk about the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. Europa League final, Leverkusen were playing Atalanta. I think 100% people said it's going to be Leverkusen, unbeaten team for 51 matches. FA Cup final, United versus City. I think 100% people, including United fans, said it's going to be Manchester City. Now, 2 of those finals have shown us that the lesser fancy team has gone on to win it. Could this be the third, Mark?
Yes, it absolutely could. As I said, on any given day, Dortmund, the one thing we know about Dortmund is they can score goals. They have players that can create. We'll talk about Reus and we'll talk about Brandt as well, who are both similar players but can create and score goals and are match winners. So while you get players like that in your team, it only takes maybe 2 or 3 of the Real Madrid team to not perform to that level, and everyone on the Dortmund team to have a good day, then it becomes an even Steven game. But I'm always, me, I always want the cream to rise to the top, and I always want the best team to win. And the best team for me between these is Real Madrid. But whether they do get over the line, because at some point, it's like when you talked about Leverkusen, at some point they were going to get beat, and at some point Real Madrid are not going to score in the 89th and 90th minute. It's going to be one of them. So they're still well in the game, Dortmund, absolutely still well in the game. But it'll be interesting because it's at Wembley as well, isn't it, the game?
Yeah.
In England. Wembley. So it's going to be a huge stadium as well. And
should have really gone to UK. It didn't go to UK at the right time. Could have watched the FA Cup final and the Champions League final.
Yeah, you could have.
It's going to be at Wembley.
So it's a big stadium. Whether the players at Dortmund are equipped to play at such a level, I'm sure they are, because they play in front of 70, 80,000 every week or every other week. So it's an interesting game for me because, as I say, both teams, Real Madrid more so, have match winners, but so do Dortmund on their day.
Leverkusen is one of our favorite teams. It's being very obvious right now. We were bringing in the references here. Borussia Dortmund. Okay, so everyone that's watching this match expects. Everyone who's obviously thinking about this match expects Real Madrid to win. Again, the reason I bring these 2 finals from the Europa League and the FA Cup, because I saw drastic differences in playing styles. Atalanta played Leverkusen off the pitch. They literally played them off the pitch. Leverkusen couldn't do anything right. They had 51 matches where they did almost everything right, or at least for certain periods of the match, they did everything right. In this game, the way they were just pressing them, the way they were kicking them, I saw some old school football where let Xhaka know you're there. So every time Xhaka got the ball, I think 3 players went out and made sure his calves felt the impact of an Atalanta player. So it was immense pressing. The way they went about, I feel they just killed Leverkusen on the day. Leverkusen couldn't do anything. United, on the other hand, didn't really do that initially. They were letting City play, which I was very scared of. Terry Phelan had mentioned also the horseshoe passes that City keep doing and play you out. And United didn't play Atalanta's pressing game. So there were different styles to how these 2 teams went about it. You think Dortmund, if or could have a third style. If you were to say, okay, this is how I think Dortmund should go about it against Real Madrid, would you pick Atalanta's way? Would you pick United's way? Or would you have a third way to go about it?
No, I would. I mean, if you look at the stats for that game, the FA Cup, I think Man City had 75% of the ball, which is not ideal. But I think there's, if you looked at the Atalanta the way they did, because Bayer Leverkusen have been the Manchester City of the Bundesliga, if you like, dominating possession and being able to do them horseshoe, keeping it wide and getting the ball and manipulating chances. I think Dortmund have to go at Real Madrid, because Real Madrid, they do concede goals. And what Dortmund have got, they've got a player called Füllkrug who likes to ruffle people's feathers. Now, we've seen Rudiger against Harry Kane. I mean, that was a battle. And Rudiger won. And Haaland as well. And Rudiger won in both of them. But this guy, Füllkrug, he's a handful, And so what Dortmund have got, they've got the option to be able to play, because they've got the players in midfield, Sabitzer, Reus if he plays, or Brandt. You've got Adeyemi on the left-hand side. You've got players, but you can also go from back to front quickly. So say, for instance, you're under severe pressure. It only takes a centre-half to just turn himself and just launch a ball as far as you can get, and he'll be there, Füllkrug. And it's a little bit Sam Allardyce, where they say, it's a long hoof or it's a long pass, but they have them both options. I'd go at Real Madrid, because at the end of the day, as we've just said, they got lucky in the semi-final, because they scored two. They were out of the game, really. I mean, a few debatable substitutions from Bayern, but they were out of the game. And obviously, if Dortmund do like what Atalanta did and dominated and score at the right times, then there can be an upset. But it's very difficult when you're going up against, and we talk about world class being mentioned too often. Real Madrid have world-class players in their team. So it's going to be a big ask, but not unsurmountable.
Okay. Now, interestingly, you mentioned that point about Real Madrid conceding. So domestically, they were fantastic. It was really hard to concede against them, or score against them, sorry. They lost only one game the entire campaign. In Spain, it was very hard to score against them. I haven't looked at the exact number, but I remember a couple of matches before the final match day, it was just 22 goals or something they had conceded. So that they were incredible. In the Champions League, though, you're right, they tend to concede a lot of goals. And this statistic was very interesting. Now, Antwerp played in the Champions League, and they obviously didn't go along into the knockout stages. But Real Madrid are second on the list of most goals conceded in the Champions League. Royal Antwerp is number one at 17 goals, I think. Real Madrid are two with 15. And agreed, they've played 6 games more. But then when you see their defensive record in La Liga, you think they should be able to do better. They have been conceding. Dortmund can score. Interestingly, Daniel Malen comes back also for Borussia Dortmund. He's been missing for a while. So they have these players up front. You spoke about the likes of Adeyemi, who reminds me a little bit, if I may say, about Lookman and what he did for Atalanta in that final against Leverkusen. They have Malen coming back. They have Füllkrug, this tank up front. They have Jadon Sancho as well, who seems to have another wind at Borussia Dortmund. So up front, you think they have that ability to just keep going and knocking at Real Madrid, don't you?
Yeah, and also what they do have is they have pace in abundance. Malen, Adeyemi, Sancho. So they have the pace to worry defenders. Rudiger is big, he's honest, he's strong. He's not quick, or he's not as quick as these guys. So
he is quick, Mark. He is pretty quick.
He is, but he's not as quick as your likes of Adeyemi and Sancho and Malen, if you like. It'll be interesting to see how Terzic goes about this, whether he just goes into it and thinks, okay, we don't want to get beat in the first half. We want to be able to be a little bit more solid defensive. Or does he go the Atalanta way and say, like, gung-ho, let's get at them and let's see what they're made of? Because as you just said, they'll have done all of their stats as well, Dortmund, and they'll know that they're susceptible defensively, especially in Europe. Now, I can't for the life of me understand why they're good in La Liga in Europe. So, But it is.
I think in Europe it's how we talk about Real Madrid, where we say it's Real Madrid, they're going to win. So I think they just walk into Champions League saying, "Relax, guys. It's okay if we concede. We'll just score." And they do. It's not even like it's happened once. It just continues to happen. Leipzig were better, when they played Real Madrid. Leipzig were better, and Leipzig aren't here. Manchester City played so well against them, and they aren't here. Bayern Munich, like you said, in that second leg, were through, and they aren't here. So it is Real Madrid. I think they have that thing that we speak about. Sometimes it seems funny. Sometimes it seems like a bit of a joke that, oh, it's Real Madrid and the Champions League. But there is some truth to that aura. They're never beaten. They're never beaten. They're always around.
But it can't happen all of the time.
We say this, but it keeps happening unless City play them out of a game like they did last time around.
But why not Dortmund? Leverkusen with the same. How many goals did they score in the? And everyone's going, oh, the 1-0 down, they'll come back, and they did up until they got whooped by Atalanta.
Interesting, you say that, because then that's an omen. Because we spoke about Leverkusen and late goals. And that didn't happen again. I mean, that didn't happen. Even if it did, I don't think it would have made a difference. So, maybe it's an omen. And I speak about omens because when we did the FA Cup, David James mentioned something very interestingly right at the start of the show. He spoke about Portsmouth, and he said, when we won the FA Cup, he said we played only one Premier League team on the way to the final, and we played only once at home, if I remember correctly. And he said that's the only similarity between Portsmouth and Manchester United. Portsmouth went on to win the FA Cup. United are going to lose the FA Cup. And when United won, I said, hey, David, your omen has kind of come true. So maybe this is the other omen, no late goals for Real Madrid.
Can I ask you a question? Did both of them pick Man City, or did anyone say Man United to win the game?
No one picked Man United, Mark. No, I mean, I'm sure even you didn't pick Man United. I didn't pick no one picked Man United. The only thing I'll give credit for that quickly is to Ian Cheeseman and Terry Phelan. They both said they were nervous before the match. Ian Cheeseman said, I'd rather have any team from England except Manchester United. And I think Andy Mitten joked about it, saying, come on, it's like one of those students who prepares and says, I haven't done any preparation, and then goes on to top of the class.
I know why they were nervous. I know why they were nervous, because they seen the pictures of Grealish and Rodri coming out to the nightclub at 5 o'clock about 4 days beforehand.
Probably. Okay, let's come back to the Champions League. We set the omen. That's very nice. The underdogs have won the last 2 big finals that we've been part of, and no late goals for Leverkusen. The 2 things we'll again talk about Borussia Dortmund, because we know what Real Madrid will do. Defensively, I'm going to talk about 1, Mats Hummels, who wasn't your favorite player, and I don't think it's your favorite centre-back pairing also for any team, isn't it? Go on.
No, I mean, listen, I've always said this. I have my opinion, and for me, my opinion is okay, and everyone else's. And I've seen Mats Hummels for the last 2 or 3 years, and for the life of me, I don't know how he's still playing to the levels that he does get in the Champions League. In the domestic season, the Bundesliga, they haven't been great. Both him and Schlotterbeck, who've played as a partnership. But I will give him his due, and I will stand on my own belief that he's been absolutely magnificent, not only as a defender, but as a leader, or as a captain. If he's a captain when maybe Reus isn't playing, he's been absolutely immense. And he is the reason why Dortmund have got to the Champions League final. I'm hoping and praying that he has another great game, for them. And then that will not shape the balance in terms of, but Dortmund being favourites for the game. But if Dortmund are going to win this, he has to play to the levels that we've seen him playing. And
in the semi-final especially.
Yeah. I mean, and before that in Europe as well, he's been excellent. But I know, and I've seen it, there's a Rick in both him and Schlotterbeck as well. And they all need to be, and we did a show about Adeyemi, not as a left winger, but more as a left midfielder, left back, who defended for his life and got the team over the line as well. So they've all got to defend really, really well as a team, and they've all got to go forward really, really well. If they've got to play there's a bracket where they have to play to, and it's got to be 80 to 100%.
100%.
Anything below that, not just if one of them is below that, then they're going to get beaten. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting thing, because this is a huge game. This is like probably second or third in the list of most important games behind the World Cup. And, you know, they've got a lot of youngsters as well playing for them, Dortmund, who haven't had that experience, and whether they can stand up to that against, obviously, one of the biggest teams in world football as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a no-brainer for Dortmund, because everyone's like Man City, Man United. Everyone thought Man United was going to get beat. It was a done deal. The same thing with this. They'll think it's a done deal, even me included. You know, Real Madrid against Dortmund. My God, you know, you look at the goals they concede, but Real Madrid also concede lots of stupid goals.
And if anything, if there's anything that Carlo Ancelotti, and I don't think he has anything to learn, he's a genius. But if there's anything that he would have learned from both what Xabi Alonso did and Pep Guardiola did, is don't change your team too much. Because Xabi Alonso made a few changes that everyone stood up and said, wait, you're not playing a proper number 9 up front. You know, you've changed it a little bit. Why change it? Is that overconfidence thinking, yeah, we can do whatever we want? Pep Guardiola changed his centre-back pairing, and, you know, it seemed like everything just disappeared. And then the mistakes that they made. So Carlo Ancelotti is not the kind of person to change his team. He is the kind of person to just literally pick his 11 that he likes and have been consistently playing and say, okay, go on, do the job. We spoke about their centre-back pairing. So one area that I do want to talk about, and we spent more time than I thought, it's 22 minutes already, is on the left side of Real Madrid going forward. So the right side of Borussia Dortmund defending. And I know you have a player there in that position who you do appreciate, and you've spoken about. Ryerson is the player that I'm talking about. He's going to go up against, initially, only Vinicius Jr. if things go to plan. Against, I think he went up against, if I may say so, one of the best in the world, against Mbappe in the semi-final against PSG. 2 legs. PSG couldn't score a goal against Borussia Dortmund, and obviously they rely heavily on that left side. So when you see this battle of Vinicius versus Ryerson, what's the thought that comes to your mind?
I'm not as worried as I would have been if it wasn't Ryerson playing in there. You know, I think he's a very good defender. He's a rough and tough. He likes to tackle. You know, he's not the best going forward in terms of, you know, being like a Trent Arnold, if you like. But he gets up and down. He does the job what he's supposed to do. And as much as Vinicius Jr. is a world-class player, he'll have his work cut out to get past him. But what you've got to realise also is Ryerson has Hummels next to him, who has been playing really, really well. And so he'll have that experience behind him, Ryerson, to be able to maybe get a little bit closer, because Hummels will be in an area where if he gets past me, then he's going to go and close him down. So he won't be isolated like we've seen in other games where Vinicius Jr. just goes straight past players and either goes into the box or he cuts back and plays the ball into someone running onto it. So I think he's an important player. And probably nobody, you're probably the only one who's mentioned Ryerson, because he goes under the radar. You know, he's not sexy. He's not going to score you the goal. But what he does do is he defends like a tiger, and he tackles, and he just gives the ball to someone who's better equipped to play, which is what I always used to do. I was comfortable on the ball, but I give it to someone who could do more with the ball than I could. And if you've got players in the team that you've got to be able to do that, and Dortmund have in the midfield areas, and then they play to the wide men who have got the pace to burn, and I mean, that's an interesting one. But I mean, everyone will say Vinicius Jr. will come out on top. I'm not so sure, because
here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing. Because in the semi-final against Bayern Munich, obviously they were playing Kimmich at right back, and people say, you know, Carlo Ancelotti doesn't do too much tactics, and he doesn't explain to a player what to do. And he says it himself. He says, you know, I trust my players and they're great players. But there were points in the matches in that semi-final where you saw Bellingham, Rodrigo, and Vinicius, all three on the left side. you remember this? They were
Yeah.
visual. They were all three on the left side, and we were wondering. We were like, why are they all on the same side? This makes no sense because what's happening on the other side? But they were pressuring Kimmich in the way that they thought was a weakness for Bayern Munich, weren't they?
Well, it was a weakness because he got tortured for a long period in that game. Not with the three of them, just with Vinicius Junior alone. And when you rotate that way, I mean, as a defender, probably if it was me, I wouldn't have minded having Bellingham coming at me because he's not quick. He's not that quick. I could deal with him. Rodrigo's got a bit of pace, but the one I wouldn't want to have dealt with was Vinicius Junior, and he got in so many times, Arpit, and they just didn't manage to put the ball in the back of the net. But yeah, it's interesting, if you look at it'll be interesting. You said that Carlo Ancelotti won't change the team, probably won't. And I'm sure Turgis won't either. I mean, I don't think he'll change the defence at least, I think going forward, he's got a balance to be made where who does he play? Does he play the experience in the midfield areas, or does he go for someone who's, less experienced, but with a quality that might? What I'm trying to suggest
unlock
is whether
the defense. Yeah, go on. You're going to name players.
Yeah, whether he plays Reus or he plays Brandt in that area. Personally, as much as we love Reus and he's been a servant to the club, that shouldn't come into this at all. You play the best player who's going to do the best for you at that particular time. Forget all of this emotion, and Brandt for me has been a match winner for Dortmund. And he continues, and he's unlucky because he's not even in the German side or in the German squad this year. So he'll have something else to prove as well, Brandt, if he starts. And
give him a chance, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
okay. You'd pick Brandt over Reus. I would imagine it'll be really hard not to get the sentimentality into this because Terzic, of course, watched as a fan 12 years ago or 10 years ago when Borussia Dortmund were in the final. And two players who played in that final for Borussia Dortmund are going to be playing. Mats Hummels is definitely starting. And it'll be hard for him to not start Marco Reus, like you said, after everything that he's done. And now, okay, so before we pay the tribute to the two players leaving quickly, Mark, what's your prediction for this one?
I think Real Madrid will win the game. I always say goals change games. And if Real Madrid score in the first half, maybe in the first 20 minutes, I think it could be a high-scoring game for Real Madrid. So I'm going to pick Real Madrid.
Okay, I'm going to go with Real Madrid as well. I think overwhelming favorites in this one. And now the tributes to the two players who are leaving. I know the first one might go quicker than the second one. So we'll start with Marco Reus. He spent 12 years at Borussia Dortmund. Second highest scorer in history for Borussia Dortmund. A great career there. Obviously not what he would have wanted it to be for Borussia Dortmund as well. So many injuries along the way. But stayed there, stayed loyal. Chances with Germany also missed out. But he's not retiring. He's obviously going to continue playing. But what a great servant for Borussia Dortmund.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to stay at a club of that stature for 12 years means that you were doing something right. And he was a crowd favourite. He was a captain. He was a leader of the team. And like all good things, they have to come to an end. And, I think it's time for both Dortmund and for him to go to pastures new. Now, obviously, he'll want to sit down and look back at his career. And we look back and we think, what did we win? And it's not necessarily all about the cups you had. Or you'll have things in your head about games, where how did I affect my team in a certain game when I had to? And he was a big player for Dortmund, big player for Germany, big player in Europe, Champions League football. And you've got to give him that credit because, to play to that standard for so long, and especially with all of the knockbacks that he had, not just injuries, in terms of, with Germany and different things and the injuries, I think he's done amazing. And, to go out in a Champions League final, you can't ask for anything else, can you?
Yeah, got a great send-off domestically, of course, and now we'll have it at Wembley. Great player. I used to enjoy watching him all those years ago. Him and Götze in that midfield for Borussia Dortmund, they used to be electrifying to watch. They were the Atalanta of the Bundesliga back then, if I may say so. Just a team you would love to watch. Jurgen Klopp, of course, was managing them, and he made them an incredible side. So congratulations, Marco Reus, and best of luck for wherever you go. The other player who's not going to go anywhere else as of now, who said he's retiring, shocking the entire world probably, is Toni Kroos. One of your favorite players, I know, Mark. This guy is fascinating. Before we congratulate him and wish him well, you just want to go over what he has achieved personally and for Real Madrid, don't you?
I do, and this is the stature of the man that we're talking about. You know about me, about world-class players. It's too easy to ban. This guy has been world-class, is world-class in everything that he's done, whether it was at Bayern Munich, Leverkusen, or Real Madrid. He's absolutely personified. Not only that, he's been the most decorated player for Real Madrid in their 120-year history. I mean, forget about anything else. All of that has been is a thing. The trophies he's won. Do you know what the only thing that goes against him for me is that he's only scored 28 goals, believe it or not, for Real Madrid in the whole of his tenure, the 460-odd games he's played. But he's created 100. And he's a massive part or he was a massive part of Real Madrid, massive part of Germany, of course. And he's a honest, he seems to be an honest, down-to-earth guy. I mean, this is a guy that when Real Madrid used to play away in European football games, maybe in England or whatever, he'd get a private jet at his own expense to get home. And do you know what the reason why he'd do that? Was to be there when his kids woke up. And if you've seen the ending, I think one of the last game he played for Real Madrid, you can see he's a real family man. Yeah. He's a real good father. And I've heard other quotes from him about these players that are going to the Saudi to take him money and all the rest of it. He's quite categorically said, I want to play to the highest levels until I'm ready to retire. And he did that. He has done that. It's a fitting end for him. And he's still only 34, Arpit. Not a lot of people can go out on the top. They try and eke it out another year, and we'll go to America or we go to Saudi. He's retired on top. And I think it's a fitting end to somebody, and it'll be the same with Modric as well. He'll be in the same thing as him. But if you look at the trophies he's won over the course of his career, my goodness, it's absolutely stunning. And I hope that we talked about Reus winning the Champions League for him, and I know sentiment doesn't come into it, but I really hope that he can win the Champions League.
Toni Kroos. Yeah. I know. The way you've spoken about him over the past few years, I know how much you respect him. I know how much you rate him as well, and everyone else around the world. And like you mentioned, those visuals in that final match that he played at the Bernabeu and he went off. Real Madrid weren't even doing that well in that game. They didn't need to. They'd already won La Liga. But when he walked off, and every person, every camera, every eye was on Toni Kroos, and he goes out, meets everyone from the team, then heads over to his family, consoling all his kids who don't know why everyone's being so emotional at this moment. But like you said, he just comes across, you said as a great family man, as a perfect man. Everything that that seems to do just seems to be what a quintessential gentleman should be about. And that, I think, is
and you mentioned gentleman, and he is a gentleman. But when he plays, he has all the other characteristics that you need to have. Seriously. And, do you know the one thing I will say about him, and I don't know this, but from what I look at, he loves the game. He loves his job. And he probably, he does it right in every aspect, whether it's with the drink or whether it's with his food or whether it's with his training. You just know that. And you can see this because you can't play to that level
non-stop
at the level, continue winning trophies and, be 34. He's the archetypal proper world-class footballer, and I have no worries about saying that. I do about other people telling, other people he's world-class, this guy is the real deal, or he was the real deal.
And he's not flashy at all. Yeah, he's not flashy.
Down in the annals of history. Yeah.
Deservedly so, Toni Kroos. And, while we were talking, I don't know, this thought just came to mind that when was the last time I thought this about someone who played football at the highest level, like all those things that you mentioned. And I mean, I'm sure there are more, but my brain went straight to Xabi Alonso. That's the way I used to think about Xabi Alonso when he played. Proper man, usually not into fights, just doing his job, getting done with the job, going back. And now he is one of the best rated managers out there. Of course, he still has to prove next season and the season after that. But I feel like if there's one man who will go down that path, if he wants to get into management, it'll probably be Toni Kroos, because obviously a mastermind genius, and then been coached and been at the top level and has won pretty much everything. So I think,
and also with that, Arpit, is he's been coached by the best as well throughout his career. So if he ever wanted to go into coaching, he's had the best teachers. You know, I know Xabi Alonso's dad is an ex-football coach and has done it professionally. So, you know, he's got that background as well. But I think with Toni Kroos, he's got everything in his corner. But listen, at the end of the day, he's retiring at the right time at the top. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need to go into football.
Yeah, from fans like me, he's not retiring at the right time. Mark, I would rather have seen him play a season or more. I'm pretty sure Real Madrid would have rather seen him play a season or more. I mean, Modric at 39 is still killing it for them when he comes on. So I know you mean it, and you're right. I'm not, kind of countering it. It's just I know from a lot of fans, and I know from a lot of Real Madrid fans, they're like, no, maybe just another year. But he's made his decision, and it's stunning to see him make his decision and stand by it. Congratulations to him, 4 Champions League already with Real Madrid. And just a quick reference, this was a player, was it Jose Mourinho? Who was it? Who said he wasn't that good for Bayern Munich or something like that? I don't remember. But they said he wasn't that good for Bayern Munich, so we need to get him out of here. And he's gone on to Real Madrid, and he's done a great job. So congratulations, Toni Kroos. And from there, I'm going to take a segue, Mark. 37-minute mark. Wow. Look at us just talking and talking. To the Euros. Now, we're not going to talk in depth about the Euros. Do you have your book around you anywhere close?
I do.
Come on, get it out. We'll show it to people. Come on.
No. Okay.
This is how Mark Seagraves prepares for any tournament, any game. And
so this is my book. How anal.
Okay.
And then I open up with all the groups.
So the pinks are the groups, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and then we go individual for the teams, for the squads and whatnot. And then we have all the fixtures, is it? All the groups again, where they were and everything else. So I've got everything.
So one sec before you go. So you make a table after every game. Is that what it is? So you write down a table after every game,
and then you can see where they are in terms of after game 1, after game 2, after game 3. I write down all of the games that happen, and I'll put in a team sheet on each. It's just for me being. It takes me back to being a 10-year-old again when I used to watch the World Cup. Yeah.
And I know there'll be a lot of people who'll say, "Hey, Mark, have you heard about the internet?" Because they do things, but I love and respect what you do about this. We used to cover this area in the La Liga, and obviously we've done the Bundesliga. And every week, Mark would make a new table saying, "Okay, what has happened? Goals scored." Literally the table that's available on so many apps, but Mark would make it down. And so, Mark, your prep is ready. And the segue I was going to make was for Toni Kroos and Germany. So obviously your favorite team, the team that you're going to support at the Euros is Albania. But the thing about comedy, Mark, no, obviously you're supporting England. But you were saying if you had a second favorite, it would be?
Timing. Oh, sorry. We've talked about Toni Kroos as well and going out on the top. I mean, I want England to win, of course, but I just think it would be fitting for him to have. I don't think he's won the Euros. He's won everything else: Champions League, La Liga, World Cup, everything. So this would be a fitting end, and I think. If you look at the squad in depth, I think defensively they could be a little bit stronger. But if you look at midfield areas and strikers, then they have decent players. They're at home, if you like, on home soil, which it will be a big influence for them. But yeah, when they got a mixture, of the oldies, which is obviously the likes of Kroos, Gondwan, and players of that ilk. But they've got the youngsters coming in as well, Musiala, Wirtz, Pavlovic. You know, you've got players like that, Sané as well, who's in the middle. So I think they do have players that can cause problems for the opposition, and they're in a decent group. It's not a hard group. They're at home. As I say, the supporters will be behind them. They'll have the impetus. So I'm just thinking, for an outsider would be Germany.
Okay, Germany as the outsider. I don't think they'll be an outsider for it, but
well, you know, I mean,
looking at that team, they're pretty much okay. Go on.
You've got France in there as well. You've got the Netherlands as well. You've got Spain. You know, so but
and England.
And England, but you know, they've been through a transitional period, Germany, a couple of times really. And I think now this is probably the strongest squad that they've had for a while. But as I say, being at home with the crowd and the fervour that's going to be around Germany, then that's an added bonus for them. And as I say, they've got players who have been playing to a good level, scoring goals as well. And so I just think defensively they could have been a little bit more sound, but they've got what they've got. And as I say, I look at the midfield and the forward line, and I think, you know,
they're good.
They're okay.
They have Pascal Gross in there as well. This is one of the first times I'm looking at the list. And like you mentioned, Gundogan, Toni Kroos bring the experience. Kai Havertz is in there, and he's only 24. I mean, I keep thinking this guy is way older than 24 because he's been there at that level for so long. Wirtz, and I think that's why, you were talking about Julian Brandt missing out. I think in that position, because of what Wirtz has done, because of what Musiala has done as well at times, I think he was what you call the unfortunate losers, unlucky loser or something like that.
And you know what I like about Nagelsmann? He doesn't conform to the norm, does he? You know, he's a bit of a free spirit, and he'll pick whoever he wants. And he's picked players from unfashionable clubs, if you like. One of the players who has scored, I think it was about 20 odd goals this season, Undav from Stuttgart. And he's in the squad. He's only had one cap for the German national team, and he's done that with Koch as well, Robin Koch, who played for Frankfurt, I think it was, this year on loan from Leeds. So he's picked players that you wouldn't necessarily, you know, look at being in the German squad. But I like the fact that he's picked players that are on form as well. And we look at Southgate. He's trying to do that, but you know that he'll go to type, and the players that we think he should be in there, he'll leave out and go back to the same old. But yeah, I just think with the quality, and as you say, Musiala and Wirtz have been outstanding this season. The quality that they possess, they're going to be a real handful as well, and they're in an easier group, if you like. The group that they have is not too difficult, so they'll find themselves in the later stages of the Euros for sure.
Okay. Well, that's about what we wanted to talk about. Euros, we'll get into in depth from the next episode onwards, of course. Right now, I didn't want to get into too much depth. I just wanted to talk about Toni Kroos and the German team because you mentioned him before we started the show. Before we started the show, we did not color coordinate. Throughout the show, Mark, I was just looking at the colors across, and it seemed like we had tried to do this on purpose, but we obviously had great minds just think alike. Do you want to say something before we wrap up?
No, I'm just looking forward to the Champions League and then roll on the Euros because it's a huge tournament, and we'll see some really good players on show again.
Okay. Before we wrap up, though, quickly I'll say one thing because we were talking about your tables and how meticulous you are. The first time you made a table for the Bundesliga, Mark, do you want to just quickly tell us what happened?
Yeah, I did all of this, and I was very proud, and I showed it to Manas Singh, and I put 20 teams in for the Bundesliga, and Manas said, there's only 18 teams, and I went, so all of my 19 and 20s are all rubbed out.
A lot of people are getting informed about it right now, Mark, because of what you said. So that was, that's going to stay in our memory forever. But yeah, cool. Mark, great catching up with you again. As always, so much to talk about and so much fun to be had. That was episode 14, and we look ahead to your company on episode 15 on The Mark with Arpit. Goodbye.